Narcolepsy, the condition where you just fall asleep out of the blue, is normally thought of as a sleep disorder that only affects adults. But as it turns out, many symptoms apparently start during childhood and adolescence. Joining me now are sleep expert and TV personality Dr. Raj and Carol Arnett, whose teenager was diagnosed with narcolepsy. Thank you both for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Elsa, for having us here. We are excited, both of us, to actually raise awareness about narcolepsy.
So tell us, for people who don't know about narcolepsy, what exactly is it?
Sure. I mean, it's a chronic neurological condition where there's dysregulation of the sleep and wake cycles. Can you imagine, Elsa, a patient with narcolepsy have these attacks of irresistible sleepiness during the day when they're at school, at work, on a TV interview. And then at nighttime, it's not even any easier. They have multiple arousals and awakenings. So you can imagine it's a vicious cycle. But what we want to mention today is that narcolepsy is not only a disease of adults. We see it in children. We see it in adolescents. In fact, 50% of patients with narcolepsy present with signs and symptoms before the age of 18 years of age. This is a great opportunity to raise awareness.
So how common is narcolepsy?
Great question, Elsa. So it's actually going to be 1 in 2,000 people in the United States have narcolepsy, but I got to tell you that it's not as uncommon as you think it is. It gets underdiagnosed, it gets misdiagnosed, because you got to watch those signs and symptoms. And what are those signs and symptoms? It's going to be excessive daytime sleepiness, sleep paralysis. You could get these visual, scary hallucinations as you're falling asleep, poor sleep at night, and cataplexy. And that's why we teamed up together. I'm with Carol over here because her daughter went through these.
So Carol, can you tell us about your daughter's journey to diagnosis?
Sure. She started to really show signs of narcolepsy when she was 14. She had terrible excessive daytime sleepiness. She fell asleep every day in school. She would go to the nurse's office and she would pretend that she had a headache so she could take a nap. She'd get up in the morning and she would actually cry because she was so exhausted that she felt like she couldn't go to school. She had depression and anxiety, and we realized that this was not just a normal sleepy teen, that something else was going on. And so we called her pediatrician. He sent us to a sleep specialist, and she had a sleep study and was diagnosed with narcolepsy.
Yeah, how do adult and pediatric symptoms differ then?
That's a great question. So those signs and symptoms we talked about, they're shared by both, but the way they present is different. So let's talk about excessive daytime sleepiness. It's the reason why people see a sleep specialist. It's so debilitating. But you know what, Elsa? Me and you, we could probably describe what it means to have excessive sleepiness, but it's tough for a kid. They can't articulate. So when we talk about our adolescents, our children, they get perceived as lazy when they nap at school, which is far from the truth. They present with hyperactivity, ADD, ADHD. They develop depression and anxiety. So you've got to know what you're looking for in order to make the correct diagnosis.
And what percentage of people with narcolepsy are estimated to be undiagnosed?
No, I'm just telling you, who knows what that number is, in the sense that when we talk about those symptoms and signs, let's talk about people who have these scary visual hallucinations, when they're falling asleep. Kids are trying to tell that to their mom, their dad, to adults, and, it's hard for them to say that. And they sometimes get chalked up for nightmares. It was a night terror. And maybe that's where the saying came from, there's a monster in my closet. So it's so hard for people to even mention what these symptoms are. But I think the easiest thing to do is, if you suspect narcolepsy in yourself, a loved one, your children, go to morethantired.com. There's a screening questionnaire there, and it's actually for adults and for children, and it puts you on the right journey. And there's a physician finder, so you can find someone who's very familiar with narcolepsy to help out with the diagnosis and the management.
Dr. Raj and Carol, thank you so much for being here. We will be right back with more Midday Maryland right after this. Stay tuned.